All right, so just edited the first YouTube video, got it up. A little bit cringy, I think, but we're gonna keep rolling with it. So today I got week 2 of my lower one lift. So this is the first week or first lift of week 2. I just kind of jumped in filming these at the end of week 1 last week. So here we are. You guys are getting week 2. So main movement today is going to be some back squat. Week 2 weights will be heavier than week 1 weights. Week 1, it was our first block back squatting. So first week back squatting in probably at least 8 weeks, if not longer. So even though the prescribed weights on paper seemed light, they felt heavy. So we'll see how today goes. Again, the wave loading is 642, 642 with a 4-second count on the way down. So 4-second eccentric. So it's definitely, a good enough tempo, and 2 reps on a back squat should be enough weight to make you nervous come week 4. So looking forward to that here in a couple weeks and really just building up in order to get there. Body is feeling pretty good. Shoulders still a little iffy, especially going through these cars and things like that. I probably need to get into some more soft tissue work there. That's something that I find all the time. People ask me about, like they'll come in with these little nagging kind of, I don't even want to call them injuries, but just elbows, shoulders, knees, shins, stuff. And I'm like, well, have you done anything for it? And they're like, well, no. And it's like, okay, well, try rolling it out. Do you have access to a Hypervolt or Theragut? Fantastic. Why don't you try using that? If that doesn't help, maybe you go see somebody, get some soft tissue work done by a professional. A lot of times, like, that's why I don't want to call them injuries, because I don't think, shoulders definitely a little pinchy still in there. We're going to not push the range too hard on that today. But they're not injuries if you can do some soft tissue work over the course of a few days and a few weeks, and they kind of get better as you go. You can train through them, and it's just soft tissue stuff. Tissue, fascia gets bunched up, causes things to move incorrectly, and if you don't take care of yourself, then you're going to end up feeling uncomfortable. So that's probably something I need to get better at. I'm ranting at you about other people, but I have the same problems, right? So, and it's the same thing. I've taken up running, and man, my legs have felt super heavy this last like week and a half. And I know I just need to do more soft tissue work. So specifically the quad and kind of the knee down, I got to take care of myself a little bit more. I've added a ton of volume just through running alone. So that needs to be accounted for somewhere in my recovery. And if I'm not willing to put more effort into the recovery, then I'm not going to be able to continue running very long. And I don't deserve to have the cardiovascular and aerobic benefits associated with a better cardiovascular system, such as living longer. So that's where I'm at with all of that. All right, taking the time to the hip cars today. Big lower body day. What else do I have on the docket today? I think some goblet squats where I've been going feet really close together, heels elevated. That's kind of my, I believe it's B2 movement. So really trying to isolate those quads. As you guys can see in my garage gym here, I don't have a lot of equipment that, I don't have like a leg press or a hack squat or a leg extension machine. So this lower body one day is definitely my lower body push oriented day. We'll get some hamstrings and some pulling movements in there. We'll save that for my lower body 2 day primarily. So a good way to get a little extra quad work today. Go nice and light on the kettlebell. Keep the torso upright. Push the knees forward. Get that hamstring to cover the calf at the bottom. And go from there. We'll also get into some glute hams. I'm doing those weighted, but they're only kind of top range partials. I've been really trying to add some range of motion. My goal for 2024 is to get to a point where I can do a full Nordic without assistance, touch my chest to the ground and pull myself back up. So figure start where it's strong, load it up, build some volume, and then we'll drop it down 15 degrees and restart, body weight, really low volume, and try to come back up from there. So you guys will see my setup for that. Get the hamstrings going there. And then we'll finish with, I think, some lateral squats and something else for the all hammies. So it should be a good day. The usual starting off with some mobility work here. So getting going with some hip internal rotation before we squat. Just got pails and rails. Good 2-minute stretch. So this is a position here with the dowel rod, corkscrewing my leg into internal rotation. I've been working on this for, let's see, I did a block where we were pails, did a block pails and rails, did a block with liftoffs, did a block with some band resisted liftoffs. So I think this is, I did 12 weeks, last week was 13. So this is my 14th week doing some version of mobility work in this hip internally rotated position. It's starting to feel better for sure, but next block's probably going to be time to switch positions and kind of restart the progression over with the pails. But overall, I mean, a lot of this is just maintenance stuff. So you can see me sitting here, like, can't really dig in too much more and sit into that much more hip internal rotation. So it's not great. I don't have great hip internal rotation, but I don't want it to get any worse either. And as we, like I said earlier, I'm starting to run. That's a really repetitive motion in a very small range of motion. And then doing, heavy resistance training, creating more and more pressure in a very specific range of motion and movement pattern. I'm not doing a whole lot outside of this mobility work to maintain good hip rotation. And hip rotation is going to keep my hips healthy for a really long time. So this might be a, this might seem like unnecessary work or just, eating up a bunch of time in the beginning of my workout. But for me, this is something I see moving forward into the future, years and years and years from now, that is going to be really, really valuable. It's like starting to invest in your 401k or your IRA. This is, I'm investing into that movement quality fund or that mobility fund so that down the line, I can do all the things that I want to do and keep doing the things that I'm currently doing. So trying to snap that dowel rod in half for my pails and then reversing it, and trying to pull that leg further into internal rotation or use my leg to kind of pull that dowel rod further into internal rotation and relax. Got a good cramp to that TFL down in that hip pocket. We'll go 30 seconds here, just trying to keep normal breathing. And then we're going to hit some eccentric neural grooving. So 4 weeks of pails, 4 weeks of adding the rails in, following the pails. Then on block 3, did pails and rails followed by liftoffs. Then pails and rails followed by some resisted liftoffs. Now getting into this eccentric neural grooving. So I'm going to switch that dowel rod over and I'm going to start an internal rotation. I'm resisting with my lower body. I am winning with my upper body. So I'm starting off in an internally rotated position. Those internal rotators of the hip are shortened, and I am lengthening them under load. Definitely an uncomfortable experience, but definitely gets the hips warmed up. And that's why a big part of, I think, doing all of this prior to starting my corrective exercises or before squatting is while I am looking to continue to improve range of motion, I'm also warming up the hips. I can't think of a much better way to tell the body to get more blood flow to the hip capsule and surrounding musculature than doing some of these. All right, we got some squat specific work here. Again, progressions, 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 progressions. So down into the palm squat, arms up, back down, lift up. We're going to get a big exhale on the way down. Big inhale on the way up. And we're going to pair that up with a dead bug. So again, progression, bilateral dead bug, both arms, both legs, out, low back in contact with the floor, and back in. Two sets here. So palm squats started with palm squats, went to palm squats, T-spine rotation. Now we got the arm raise, dead bugs. Started off with a contralateral, then bilateral with a band. Now bilateral, both arms, both legs. I do have some people I follow in the fitness industry who, oh God, got some people that I follow in the fitness industry. We're just going to cut that clip. Jesus. And get into some plyos. Just go a counter movement jump. Getting up tall, snap, push, and up. Slow sets, fast reps. Just hoping to potentiate before we get into these squats. Take about a 30-second rest and then get back at it. Got some aminos today in my little intro workout shake here. Again, just really thinking about trying to recover between the running and the lifting 4 days a week, running 3 days a week, lifting 4 days a week. Not always on different days, usually actually on the same day, but legs have been feeling super heavy. I've been playing around with my supplements, trying to get a little bit more out of my recovery. Plyos of something also that I've added a little bit more of into my workouts in 2024. I've got access to a force plate at work. So seeing jump height numbers go up, seeing broad jump numbers go up, seeing RSI go up, as well as improving my cardiovascular health, things like blood pressure, things like VO2 max, are big goals for me in 2024, again, from a health and a longevity standpoint. Last set. All right, so now we got some warm-up sets on the old barbell back squat. Raise this up a bit. some people in the fitness industry that I follow say that all of that stuff you just saw me do, between the cars, the mobility work, the corrective exercises, the jumping, all really unnecessary, and that you could just get into your first lift of the day, start off with something like 50% of your working weight for that day, hit 12 reps, go up a little bit, hit 8 reps, go up a little bit, hit 4 reps, and then boom, you're warm and you can get into it. Again, that might be the case. Certainly would get you in and out a little bit quicker if you're in a time crunch. But I like to take my time with it, see if I can check a few more boxes while I'm down here. Again, I think that's going to keep me, it's, like I said, you're just investing into the 401k that is your health, that's your wellness, and trying to stay at a point where you can do this stuff for as long as humanly possible. So now I'll get into my warm-up sets, working up here to 240 pounds for my first set of 6. And I've got no real specific warm-up, so I'll just throw 135 on, probably go 185, maybe hit a rep at 225, and then jump into that first set. All right, here we go. Set number 1. 6 reps, 4 count on the way down. Lightest set of the day. Okay. Back squat still feeling a little bit heavy. Next set for 4. 255. All right, now 255 for 4. Okay, there's the timer. 270 for 2. Okay, so now we wave back up. We got 250 for 6. So back squats are still feeling a little heavy after not doing them for a little while, but feel better than they did last week, despite being heavier. So last week, just for reference, we did 220 for 6. We'll call it 225 for 4, 245 for 2. So again, I mean, my weights today, 240, 255, 270. I mean, that's a pretty big jump week to week. While it still feels heavy, it's because it is kind of heavy, and I realize I'm not the biggest, strongest YouTuber out there. But you know what? That's okay. I'm stronger than a lot of people out there. And frankly, you don't need to be that strong to achieve the physique that a lot of people are looking for. If you want to look good, feel good, play good, and you want to do it for a long time, then there's probably a cap on a reasonable amount of muscle mass to put on for your life, especially if you're drug-free, and that's all a part of health in general. So If you want to find somebody or watch somebody with some really, really heavy weights or be really, really jacked, this probably isn't going to be the channel for you. But if you like lifting and you like finding ways to be able to do this for a long time, have some longevity in your training career, as well as be able to keep up with your kids and go on hikes and go on bike rides and just do things kind of on a day-to-day basis, maybe this is the channel for you. Okay, here we go now. 250 for 6. I say this is the hardest set of the day with these types of protocols. Whew. All right, hard part's down. Okay, 265 for 4. There we go, one set left. Feeling my hips kind of shoot up out of the bottom of that squat. Really trying to keep knees over toe, trying to keep hips forward, keep it all in the quads. But sometimes you just got to stand back up. Only week 2. Definitely a little nervous for week 3 and especially week 4. Up to 280 we go. So on my upper body days in my A series, I'll still pair exercises up. So do some type of a superset or superset. So like the other day when I videoed, I had an incline bench, paired up with a wide neutral grip pull up. Lower body days, I keep A1 all by itself for the most part, given certain protocols. Things like giant sets, which is coming up. Things like pre or post fatigue, obviously things are paired up because that's part of the protocol. But I just find the upper body movements a little bit less taxing on the central nervous system. I need less rest in between sets. A lot easier to pair things up. They're still to antagonists, so I'll always pair a push with a pull. But lower body days, save that stuff for the B and C series. So we'll get into some supersets here in a minute. But A1 is usually always by itself. Give myself 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes in between sets. A good complete recovery, especially like a block like this, where the volume's a little bit lower, the weights are a little bit heavier. Want to focus on good tempo, really good technique. Like I said, keeping it in the muscle groups, keep it in the tissue that I want to feel. So I do have a pretty good quad pump going, which is always good. That's what we're looking for today. Everybody likes big arms. I want big thighs. Here we go. Set number 2. All right. Those felt good. Liked where the technique was at. Let's move it on away from squats. All right, hit my timer here. We got some single leg RDLs paired up with some goblet squats. Here we go. All right, 45-ish seconds of rest, 30-ish seconds of rest, and we got some heels elevated goblet squats. Go a little narrower here. Some might call this like a cyclist squat. I'm almost going to lean back into it. Really focus on driving those knees forward. All right, so the movement like the single leg RDL, probably not going to pack on a ton of muscle in that hamstring. But again, as far as low back health, hip health, probably just a single leg stability, single leg stance, really good movement. I like to do it in these lower volume blocks because I don't have to hold that balance for as long. I can load it a little bit heavier. Really a hard movement to do for sets of 10 to 12. So we got 4 sets between these two. Let's keep it rolling. It's good. I am starting to get a decent hamstring pump though. Not bad. Not everything's got to be super heavy to get some type of good growth, good stimulus. Oh. 40 kilos. Other one was in pounds. that's the B series. 3 sets on the C series and we're out. All right, so here comes these glute hams I mentioned earlier. And again, I'm a big fan of logical progressions here. So we started off, this is a 60-degree angle, and I started off on an intensification block, so a little bit less volume. Last block was an intensification block with a long tempo and a 4-count hold. So worked some way up in volume there. I guess I don't need that strap. And as well as that time under tension. And now we've cut the volume back down. We've added the weight vest for a little extra load. We'll start to build the volume back up. Still thinking of 4-count down. And pull. So really what I'm looking for is trying to lead with the belt buckle, not anteriorly pelvic tilt, lift that tailbone, just puts the hamstrings in a lot more advantageous position and less length. With length is going to be what we get to grow. So that's what we're looking for on that one. Now we got a posterior lateral squat paired up with it, which I'll show you guys here in a second. I'm just going to keep the weight vest on because I'm too lazy to take it off. But good bell here. So posterior lateral squat, we're going to step up in this kind of drop step type of range and keeping one leg straight, kind of lateral squat into it and back up. Going 6 each leg here. All right, and in the break. I always forget with that one. Hurts my ankles if I leave the lifters on. So we'll take those off for the next set. So 4 reps here. We'll add a rep to that one each week. So I'll finish with 6. I'll just continue that progression next block. So that exercise won't change. The tempo will change to whatever my tempo is next block. We'll go right on to 7 reps. And then that one, like most of the other work, we'll just increase the weight week to week. And that's work until 6 on this B series or working 2 6 reps on this B series because we're only doing 3 sets. So, 6 sets, 5 sets in the A series, 4 sets in the B series, and we're doing less reps, so 5 reps, you got to do more sets, especially if your main goal is hypertrophy. So didn't want to be down here for a 4th set on the C series. So we just added an extra rep. Other side. And one to go. So range of motion has a, let's call it 5 to 10% increase, both above the range you're working and below the range you're working. So that's kind of the thought, right? Or 5 degree, we'll call it 5 degrees. So if this is 60 degrees, I'm probably getting some gains in the 55 degree as well. My next drop down, it's going to be 45 degrees. So that's going to be really challenging. But the hope is I can get a couple reps at body weight and just slowly build up week to week from there. Still all about range on these, trying to get knee flexion, knee flexion, knee flexion. All right, that is a wrap. Post work. All right, a little spinal decompression work here to finish. So, lower body push day. Main movement is usually some type of bilateral squat. Always good to get some spinal decompression in after we compress the spine. I've had 2 pretty significant spine injuries in my life. I remember very specifically in high school, one time, lifting in a big box gym before a family vacation and feeling something kind of pop, snap in my spine and on a front squat. No, that wasn't good. And just being in, pretty uncomfortable on the ensuing flight the next day. But nothing too bad, not until I was a strength coach, actually, at a well-known high school, going through Dr. Pat Davidson's mass program, that I really jacked my back up. And that took me out of serious training for way longer than I would like. And once you have one injury, the best predictor of future injury is previous injury. So then went to China, was working with the NBA, hopped back on the same program and hurt my back again. And that was right before a trip to Singapore for my functional range conditioning certification. But since moving to California and working at Allegiant and learning these Aldoa postures that I'm going through now for some spinal decompression, I've been pretty fortunate. No, some low back soreness and tightness here and there, but nothing catastrophic. And I think that, being diligent and regimented with these Aldoa postures is a big part of it. And I think that's true with a lot of the way that I like to set up my training is, I'll use factory reps on intensification blocks, and I'll go heels elevated on squats for accumulation blocks. And I have certain rotations for hand position on chin ups and on things like, upper body movements in all reality between neutral, pronated, supinated grip. And it's way less about, that being like some type of secret for training really hard or packing on muscle. The secret to do that is to just be really fucking consistent and the only way to be consistent at that level is to not get hurt. Um, and do the really simple things: sleep, drink water, eat well, don't drink alcohol as much. And those are all things we know. They're not sexy, but if I can systematize, things like exercise rotation and doing certain changing hand positions and things like, and just doing things so that you can't go so stinking heavy all the time, but still get tissue under tension, then I'll be able to train consistently for a really, really long time and get the results that I want. You don't see many natural 20 and 30-year-olds who are just looking stacked. You see them in their 40s and 50s. And that's because it takes years and years of training really, really hard to get that big. And that's what I'm looking for. See you next time.